On July 1, 2025, the Manhattan Federal Courthouse became a symbol of reckoning. Its towering marble pillars, once symbols of law, now bore witness to the collapse of a music empire. It was day 10 of the trial that had gripped the nation. Sean "Diddy" Combs, the once untouchable king of hip-hop and business, was finally facing his judgment. Judge Aaron Subramanian stood from the bench, a thick file clenched in his hands, documents filled with years of secrets and buried sins. "Sean Combs," he announced, his voice sharp like a knife, "you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without parole for racketeering, human trafficking, and federal coercion." The courtroom, the impact was instant. Diddy, once larger than life, collapsed at the defense table. The color drained from his face, his stare empty. It was as if the sentence had stripped the soul right out of him. Security rushed in, but it was too late. His heart had stopped. The mogul who once commanded stages and boardrooms was gone just like that. It was a silent collapse that marked the end of an empire built on fear and manipulation. Chaos followed his 18-year-old daughter. Delilah screamed as she ran from her seat in tears. Her twin, Jessie, followed closely behind. Their grandmother, Janice Combs, gripped her chest and passed out as medics rushed to her aid. The courtroom was in shock. Reporters stood frozen. Families and survivors stared in stunned silence. Diddy, attorney Brian Steele, shouted, "This is injustice." But his voice was lost in the uproar. Outside the courthouse, Manhattan streets were packed. Fans mourning, activists chanting, and camera flashes lit up the night. This was more than a verdict. It was a historic moment. The conviction wasn't based on speculation. It followed 10 explosive days in court testimonies, 60-plus civil records, and overwhelming digital evidence. At the center of it all stood Cassie Ventura, whose courage lit the match. Her 2016 hotel surveillance footage and vivid testimony about Diddy's freak-off parties shattered the case wide open. A chilling 2017 message from Diddy's phone read, "Handle the body in 603 gone before sunrise." It wasn't hearsay anymore. It was evidence. A decrypted hard drive uncovered hours of labeled abuse, exposing a system built on power, silence, and control. This wasn't just a scandal. It was the destruction of a shadow empire masked by luxury, fame, and silence. Diddy's death in court didn't just end a life, it destroyed a myth. The bad boy legacy, once celebrated, now stood as a dark machine of manipulation and trauma. On social media, hashtags exploded. Hashtag Diddy Falls, hashtag Justice for Cassie, and the bitter hashtag Bad Boy Forever trended worldwide. Fans were heartbroken, betrayed, shocked, but this wasn't just about one man. It triggered a cultural reckoning, forcing the world to question the systems that enabled and protected him. As Diddy's body was wheeled out of the courtroom, one question echoed louder than ever. Was this justice or just the start of deeper, darker truths? The final day felt like a movie. That Manhattan courtroom was tense. Truth versus celebrity power. Diddy slouched in his tailored suit, drained and defeated. Gone was the swagger. Gone was the charm. He looked like a man waiting for the inevitable. Brian Steele leaned in, whispering something urgent, but Diddy didn't react. He knew it was over. Judge Subramanian raised the file again. "Sean Combs," he repeated, "this court has reviewed 63 records, hundreds of exhibits, and heard from 11 witnesses. For organized crime, trafficking, and coercion, you are sentenced to life in federal prison without parole." The moment hit hard. Diddy's eyes widened, then faded. He reached for the table, then collapsed. "He's out," a marshal shouted. EMTs rushed in, but he was gone. Within minutes, cardiac arrest. Delilah's cry, "Daddy," echoed in the room. Jessie trailed behind her, sobbing. Janice collapsed in her seat. Steele screamed, "This is beyond unfair." But no one listened. The courtroom descended into chaos, but the evidence was overwhelming. Cassie's 2016 video, backed by decrypted files, painted a grim picture of control and abuse. Another text from Diddy read, "Guests night. You know what happens if it's not done." It matched Cassie's story word for word. Cassie stood strong on the stand. "I wasn't myself anymore," she said. "He controlled everything: my career, my image, my friends. I was nothing more than a puppet." She described the freak-offs in detail. Bright lights, loud music, hidden cameras, unlabeled substances. "It looked like a set, but it was a trap," she said. "And if you resisted, you paid." Security footage from the Intercontinental Hotel stunned the court. Diddy dragging Cassie, stealing her phone, and kicking her. His cold, expressionless face when he noticed the camera shook the jury. Israel Flores, a former hotel guard, backed her story. He once heard Cassie begging to be let out behind a locked door. Diddy offered him $100,000 to stay quiet. Flores refused and got fired. That same footage ended up in court. A former logistics team member, now under protection, described rooms set up with two-way mirrors, hidden cameras, and unknown drugs. "This wasn't a label," the witness said. "It was an operation." The FBI's 40-page report called it for what it was: a mafia-style control network, with bodyguards, assistants, and insiders enforcing silence with NDAs and intimidation. And at the top of it all was Diddy. but perhaps the most haunting name mentioned was Kim Porter. Though referenced sparingly, her name shook the courtroom. Diddy's former partner and the mother of 3 of his children, Kim was found dead in 2018 at age 47. The official cause, lobar pneumonia, but the testimony revealed far more disturbing layers. Gandil, a former bodyguard, stated her death was never properly examined. No real investigation, he said. A leaked 2018 FBI memo showed someone ordered a yellow coffin marked KP 2 months before her death. The courtroom gasped. Even more alarming, Quincy Brown, her son, never showed up during the trial. Not once. Mark Curry, former bad boy artist, testified that Diddy was obsessed with Kim. He described erratic behavior, angry calls, and one moment in 2008 when Diddy allegedly assaulted her boyfriend Shakir Stewart with a chair. Stewart later died by suicide. Kim was strong, Curry said, but Diddy's darkness was stronger. A medical examiner's note revealed that Kim's phone and laptop vanished, extremely odd for someone always connected. Another ex-bodyguard said he was stationed outside her room the night she died and told to ask no questions. There was no direct proof, but the puzzle was chilling. Why no real autopsy? Why the coffin order? Why Quincy's silence? The trial didn't just take down Diddy, it exposed an entire industry of silence. Witnesses described top producers, executives, and media figures who partied alongside Diddy, signed airtight NDAs and looked away. One chilling email from an assistant read: "No real names on hotel bookings. Clean everything before dawn." A separate leaked file revealed a disturbing list: 23 codenamed victims, stretching from the early 90s to as recent as 2020 across New York, Miami, LA, and Las Vegas. This wasn't just about one man, said lead prosecutor Emily Johnson. It was a system, a machine. Then the internet exploded. Hashtag Diddy Falls, hashtag Justice for Cassie, and the haunting hashtag Bad Boy Forever flooded feeds. A resurfaced 2010 interview clip of a rapper warning, "Party with Diddy, and you might not wake up," went viral, crossing 12 million views. The fallout came fast. Spotify, Apple Music, and MTV scrubbed his content. CROC Vodka and Sean John publicly cut ties. Howard University rescinded his honorary degree. A Brooklyn tabloid ran a bold headline across its front page: "Life sentence anno parole," stamped with a bright red FBI seal. It became a historic marker. Outside the courthouse, a candlelight vigil grew by the hour. Survivors held signs that read, "We are not props." Over 60 restitution claims were filed, inspired by Cassie's courage. This wasn't about revenge, said one civil attorney. This was about protection justice. CNN described the moment not as cancellation, but as a cultural cleansing. Ex-bad boy artists started speaking out. "I saw it all," one admitted, "and I stayed quiet." An Atlantic editorial captured it bluntly: "These crimes didn't hide. They happened in plain sight." Then came the final blow: Diddy's death. Drone footage of his body, slumped forward in a gray prison jumpsuit, began circulating online. His luxury properties in Los Angeles, Miami, and NYC were locked down. They'll likely be auctioned to fund victim compensation. His estimated net worth, once close to $1 billion, had now plummeted below $100 million, most of it frozen in lawsuits and criminal investigations. Bet pulled his Lifetime Achievement tribute. LA officials quietly removed his 2022 key to the city without a word. The leaks didn't stop. One former bodyguard turned over a 10-page sworn statement exposing a sick system Diddy called consent. "Comply or lose everything," he wrote bluntly. The FBI probe deepened, with one insider telling media, "This is just the beginning." Chapter 1. Even longtime collaborators began distancing themselves. "I thought we were building something historic," said one. "Turns out we were just part of his cover." The case file listed over 40 major names, artistic execs, public figures, indicating the spiderweb stretched far beyond Diddy. And online, the movement erupted again. Believe survivors topped 8 million tweets globally. Cassie's bravery sparked a firestorm. A handwritten sign at the vigil read, "Our voices broke the silence." Then came the quiet pain: Quincy Brown's absence throughout the trial, Janice Combs' collapse in the courtroom. Together, they painted a tragic portrait of a family torn apart by truth. Diddy's lawyer, Brian Steele, uttered a few haunting words: "Today, we lost." Courtroom evidence, emails, videos, texts formed what the internet dubbed Diddy's Black Book, a viral archive now drawing comparisons to Jeffrey Epstein's infamous files. One investigative journalist issued a stark warning: "More names are coming. This isn't over." And then, Kim Porter's shadow returned. Her name echoed again. One assistant testified about Diddy's obsessive control after their breakup, tracking her, monitoring her movements. The email trail revealing a coffin order months before her death. The missing phone. The gaps in surveillance. A viral Survivor post, liked over 1.2 million times, simply read, "Kim's truth is next. Justice isn't finished." Now the FBI faces mounting pressure to reopen her case. One family confidant said, "Quincy knows everything, but the pain's too deep to speak." What started as a celebrity trial had become a cultural reckoning. Universal Music Group froze all Diddy-associated projects. RBMG faced backlash for mimicking the same NDA abuse patterns. Rolling Stone posed the question, how many victims never got a name? A former intern spoke out, I signed that NDA at 19. I was terrified. Now I'm finally free to tell the truth. Diddy's downfall wasn't just a collapse, it was a warning. As his body left the courthouse, the silence wasn't defeat. It was a collective reflection, a reckoning. His sentence ended in death. But Cassie Ventura, the woman who cracked the silence, left with no joy, only the quiet strength of someone who had survived. Her testimony, joined by Israel Flores and dozens more, peeled back the mask on an empire built on abuse, fear, and silence. Now, the world is watching not just to see who else might fall, but to decide whether we're ready to burn the system that allowed them to rise. Cassie's voice lit the flame, and now the fire won't stop.